Welcome to the residents and guests of the world to Nome, Alaska. My name is Laura Samuelson and I'm director of the Carrie M. McLean Memorial Museum here in Nome. It's the only museum in Northwest Alaska. Nome, Alaska enjoys a most unique name recognition. Pretty much anywhere you go in the world, someone will know the name Nome. Why is that? Probably because so many interesting things have happened in this fair city over the last 100 years. But primarily, Nome is here because of gold. Nome was the site of the largest gold rush in Alaska, which started out in 1898 when the three lucky Swedes discovered gold at Anvil Creek, 3 miles north of the present-day city of Nome. That brought a rush of people that were in the Klondike Canadian Gold Rush down the Yukon River and into this area. And in the summer of 1900, 40,000 people came through Nome. People from all over the world seeking their fortune in gold. The Carrie McLean Museum focuses on not only the Nome Gold Rush, but also Nome is considered the center of dog mushing in the world. In 1907, everyone had a dog team, loved to gamble, and so that every spring from then on, they organized the All-Alaska Sweepstakes, which was a 408-mile dog sled race from Nome to Candle and return. And it was a staged race that the teams would go from point to point. We have 6 of the 10 trophies that exist in the world. Sterling silver loving cups that represent the finest dog teams in the world. It was through that event that dog care improved for the participating teams. Siberian Huskies started to be imported from Siberia because they were the best dogs at the time for freighting and for speed. And one of those dogs was a dog named Fritz, who happens to now be back in our Nome Museum. Fritz was born in Nome in 1915, lived to be 17 years old, and he was used as the foundation sire of the Siberian Husky breed. Fritz is also very famous because it was he and his co-leader Togo who were part of the 1925 serum run, where a serious diphtheria epidemic hit Nome. There was no medicine here, and even at a time when there were airplanes flying, it was too cold for an airplane to get here. So they used the United States mail delivery dog teams to transport the serum 700 miles to Nome and save the children of Nome. And Fritz was one of those famous dogs. This 1925 serum run was also the inspiration for the Iditarod, the very famous 1,000-mile sled dog race that runs every year from Anchorage to Nome. Another major part of Nome's history involves one of the 3 lucky Swedes. His name is Japhet Lindeberg. He's actually is a Norwegian. Norway was part of Sweden when the 3 lucky Swedes discovered gold at Anvil Creek. A very famous Arctic explorer was Roald Amundsen. Roald Amundsen was a good friend of Japhet Lindeberg. Lindeberg financed a lot of his expeditions. He was the first to successfully navigate the Northwest Passage, and he also determined the magnetic North Pole. He started out in Norway and his destination was Nome, Alaska. The Nome Gold Rush drew a lot of interesting people into this area. One of the more notable gentlemen that was here was Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp came in 1899, stayed till 1901, and with his wife Josie, they owned the Dexter Saloon on Nome's Front Street. It was the classiest, most well-run saloon in town, and that was at the top of a list of 100 saloons that were in Nome. This adds to why Nome is so well known, because so many notable events have happened here. Well, thank you for visiting Nome, Alaska. We've enjoyed your stay. It's been a marvel to see your beautiful ship offshore at night. It's a diamond in the rough, definitely. And we'd like to invite you to come back again on your next couple trips around the world. Come back to see us.
It was very windy in Gavrilo Bay, and we had a nice long walk in Tundra. You could see pretty different types of tundra, big lagoon in this area. There was an abundant polar weather station at the end of the gravel spit. Once weather station was in use, it was well organized. They had even a good film library, but now there are mostly empty fuel drums left in the area, which is very typical for the Arctic. People used to take fuel in drums with them, and then when they were refilling, they were throwing drums away.
We're in a place called Yuzhnaya Glubokaya Fjord, which means long, deep southern fjord. And most of us have gone for a nice walk across the tundra, perhaps up to some lakes, admiring the wildflowers, the berries that are ripe, the crowberries, the blueberries, and just the magnificent landscape of this place. This is Koryoski Nature Reserve, and along the beach and in the streams here we have a lot of salmon, mostly pink salmon and some red salmon. Spawning season is just finishing, so there are still a lot of fish in the streams, but there are a lot on the shore as well, because once they spawn they die. That's the end of the life cycle for these anadromous Pacific salmon. And we've visited an abandoned fishing village that's been closed since approximately the 60s. The buildings are quite interesting to walk around, many of them in a state of decay. But we've also seen a few bears in the area. One big bear was fishing in the river, chasing birds away, going after salmon in a half-hearted fashion, but not wanting anybody else to get those salmon either. We've seen a mother bear with her cubs up on the hill slope, probably not wanting to come close to that big male bear. So there are a few other bears around in the region as well.
It's a very rich valley, and bears have all features in this valleys, all resources they need for the entire life cycle. They have salmon stream, they have a lot of berries on slopes, and they have very good gullies filled with snow to go for hibernation. So the complete life cycle of these brown bears may go in this valley.
Дорогие гости, мы рады приветствовать вас на нашей корякской земле.
Good morning, dear friends, dear guests. We are happy to see you here in our Koryak land. So the ancient, the oldest people of Asura settlement have greeted you right now, and they wished you health, beauty, happiness, and everything should be good while you're traveling. Today we'll dance and sing our songs of ancient Koryak people, of Aboriginals.
Asura is a small Koryak village, and in their language, the name Asura means house of the humpback salmon. The Koryaks are the largest indigenous group in Russia, and they number approximately 100,000 people, and they are mostly reindeer herders by trade. This town of Asura is home to approximately 2,000 people, mostly Koryaks, and they survive largely by subsistence fishing. The village administration was established in 1937 here for the purpose of defending this section of the coast against Japanese and other potential invaders.
As you disembark, we'd like to slide as far forward as you can and swing your legs out towards the sea. It's a beautiful morning.
Kameniste Bay, we found a typical Kamchatka forest, birch forest, and a good river valley with very dense forest, which is hard to walk through. It's also brown bear land. Many bears stay and live in this valley, hunting fish, salmon, when salmon comes to streams, and finding a lot of berries in the forest and on the mountain slopes.
Kamenetsaya Bay is all part of the Koryoski Nature Reserve. Here we're only about 60 miles or so away from the Valley of the Geysers. A geyser is simply an intermittent hot spring. And this was certainly brought home to us, and for all of those who did walks today, whether it was short, medium or long, there was one of these hot springs which was sufficient enough. It was bubbling through the receding tide, where 20 or 30 of us managed to have a most enjoyable swim in the spring water.
нужны нам чужие причалы и далеких морей города. Нас по курсу три брата встречают и домашних вулканов гряда. Я к земле этой сердцем причастен, потому говорю вновь и вновь. Здесь мой дом, Петропавловск-Камчатский, мое счастье, судьба и любовь. Здесь мой дом, Петропавловск-Камчатский, мое счастье, судьба и любовь.
We've had a wonderful few days hopping our way down the coast of Chukotka and Kamchatka. Each day it's become a little bit warmer, a little bit greener, more and more trees, and now we've reached the end of our Bering Sea expedition here in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky.